Today is Friday, May 26, 2023. Once again, 19th century history.
It is increasingly clear to all of us that if Ron DeSantis succeeds in his goal of making America Florida, imagine that, the GOP project of curating an electorate they want to have the ability to vote and throwing hurdles in front of others who they don't want to be able to vote will be put into overdrive. Earlier this week, just before his much lampooned presidential campaign, do we call it a launch? DeSantis signed even more voter suppression into law, appearing to specifically target minority voters. NBC News reports that the bill, quote, includes, among other things, increasing the total annual fine from $50,000 to $250,000 that the state can levy on outside voter registration groups for infractions like late filed registration applications or using people who have felonies on their records cannot prove that they are U.S. citizens as part of voter registration drives. Heavier penalties for voter registration groups, opponents charge, will disproportionately affect registration of minority voters who are generally Democratic leaning. The bill has sparked immediate lawsuits. Voting rights attorney, our friend Mark Elias's blog, Democracy Docket, writes this, quote, Hispanic Federation, Poder Latinx, and 4 Florida residents filed a lawsuit the day after the bill was signed, challenging a portion of voter suppression law. The plaintiffs specifically challenge a provision of SB 7050 that imposes restrictions on third-party voter registration organizations that engage in community-based voter registration and targets non-citizens who assist third-party voter registration organizations with voter registration and engagement activities. Mark, what's interesting, because we've been having this conversation now for years, is how far out of the closet it all is, right? Even in the beginning, it kind of masqueraded as, well, you don't know exactly what could get inside a drop box. I mean, of course we do, the most secure kind of ballot, right? But now it's just flagrant.
It is. And make no mistake, Ron DeSantis is an unrepentant vote suppressor and election denier. You know, if anyone out there thinks that somehow he is any better than Donald Trump, then they don't know Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis has used his time in office to make voting systematically harder for Black, brown, and young voters. He has promoted the big lie. And this legislation is just the latest iteration of that. You know, Ron DeSantis won his election in 2018 by 0.1%. People who think that Florida has been a reliably red state, that was a razor-thin election. And what he has done since he's been in office is step-by-step targeting with near-surgical precision Black, brown, and young voters so that he can win elections and his cronies can win elections more easily in Florida. And I'm sad to say it is, in many respects, working. Let me give you one statistic here. In this lawsuit, one of the things, and in full disclosure, my law firm represents the NAACP and a number of other plaintiffs in this. And in the lawsuit, we point out that people of color are 5 times more likely than white Floridians to register with the assistance of third-party voter registration groups. There is a reason why SB 90 went after third-party registration groups like the League of Women Voters. There's a reason why they're going after third-party voter registration groups like the NAACP. It's because they know that it is precisely voters of color and young voters who rely most heavily on those things, and Ron DeSantis is threatened by that.
Max, the problem with this brazen, flagrant voter suppression campaign is that it is inherently asymmetrical, right? To fight against it is an inherently defensive action. Mark Elias is defending these groups in court. What is the political, and privately, when federal voting rights legislation seemed destined for failure, people would say, well, we've got Mark Elias. I mean, with all due respect, Mark Elias can't save the country from every voter suppression law, which is a political strategy as well as a legal strategy. What is the political strategy to defend against it?
First of all, there's nothing that Mark Elias can't do. Look, this is not about voting rights. That's not the political issue. The political issue here is not even about democracy. It's about freedom. And that, I believe, has actually been when the Democratic Party is really moving politically. politically speaking, that is always the basis of its politics and its messaging. Go back to when it took the House in 2006 on a pure anti-corruption, freedom-based agenda. Move again to 2018, where from all across the country, the Democratic Party flipped seats, talking about the fact that we need to not just put the economy back on the side of working people and average, hardworking Americans, but actually put the entire system back on their side. And then again, you look at this today. So, when you talk about voting rights, it seems, to oftentimes, an average person, it's semantics or this and that, or it's an intellectual matter. But when we talk about this as freedom-based, as the right in this country, based off your constitutional rights to be free, then it's a very potent, very salient political issue.
Well, Elias, thank you for getting this conversation going. Again, around here, we'll keep at it. That was my promise to you. When we come back, we'll bring Molly in on this, and we'll talk about the dangerous political game being played with our national security by one Tommy Tuberville, who can't stop talking. That's next.